Okay, so you want to like really get to the bottom of something, like understand something important without having to spend hours and hours reading.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going for with these deep dives.
Yeah, exactly. Today we are going deep on Karukku. It's the autobiography of Bama, who is a Tamil Dalit woman, and it's really more than just her personal story.
Right, it's like a window
Yeah.
to some huge social issues in India.
Yeah, really important stuff. And we're working with this overview of the book that was put together specifically for grad students in India
Yeah.
to kind of help them get up to speed on all the most important ideas. It really lays out Bama's life step by step and like points out the key themes and why they matter. So our mission today is to like take those insights from Bama's experiences and from this analysis and kind of like distill it down into
Yeah, give you a shortcut.
yeah, a shortcut to Karukku. Right. Okay. So Karukku itself, it's an autobiography. So Bama's telling her own story.
Yeah.
And it was written originally in Tamil in 1992
Oh.
and then translated to English in 2000.
And I think what's so compelling from the get-go is like the setting.
Yeah.
You know, Bama grows up in this small village in Tamil Nadu, and her family is Dalit.
Yeah.
Which, for anyone who's maybe not familiar, the term Dalit
Yeah.
refers to communities that have historically been considered outside of like the traditional caste system in India.
Right.
And they've been subject to, what was called untouchability.
Yeah. And so even though her village had like this natural beauty to it, right? Like,
Yeah, it sounds very idyllic.
hills and rivers and all that. But the reality for the Dalit community was very much segregated.
Right.
They lived in a separate area of the village called the Cherry, while the upper caste individuals lived in like the main part of the village.
And like
Yeah.
really thinking about her parents and her grandparents too,
Yeah.
they were all working as farm laborers for these upper caste landowners,
Yeah.
the Nikers,
Right.
who had so much power in the region.
Yeah. Huge economic and social power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And like even the simple things that you would think about as like joys of childhood,
Yeah.
like playing games and enjoying the local festivals and stuff.
Right.
Those things are all there. But then you have these like sharp moments where you really see like the reality of the inequality come through.
Totally.
And our source actually points out that like, they were doing incredibly hard labor, but getting paid just like a tiny amount.
Right.
They were constantly being treated disrespectfully by upper caste individuals. There's even this one really striking image that stood out to me
What's that?
where an elder is carrying food by a string.
Oh, yeah.
And her brother Annan explains to her that the reason they do that is because upper caste people believe that Dalits are dirty.
Yeah.
So they can't even touch the food
It's
freshly.
like, can you imagine?
Can you imagine?
It's awful.
It's awful. And
And she's just a kid.
yeah, she's a little kid. So you can imagine her reaction was just like sadness and anger. And, what's really interesting is that Anne and her brother like, kind of steered her towards education as their way forward. Like this is how we're going to kind of combat this.
And I think what's striking about that moment is that like the discrimination is so ingrained.
Yeah.
It's not just these like massive acts of oppression, but these constant everyday things.
Yeah, like even the way they handle food.
Yeah. Like you're not even worthy of touching my food.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a huge insight into just like how insidious caste is.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, education is, it's presented as like a way forward, a source of hope. But then even within the school system itself, there was still discrimination present.
Like it doesn't go away just because you're in school.
Right.
Like there are ways that the upper caste children will differentiate themselves.
Right.
And even some teachers, weren't completely unbiased.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like confined just to the village itself,
Right.
During school holidays, she would work for these Nikers families.
Oh, wow.
And even then, there were still these boundaries.
Yeah.
Where she had to maintain a certain distance. She wasn't allowed to touch their possessions.
Like they're afraid they're going to be contaminated.
Yeah, it's like this constant reinforcement of, a lower status. And, imagine the emotional toll of that.
It's huge.
Yeah. And then there's this really disturbing incident where the police actually attack Dalit men after some upper caste people complain about something.
Oh, wow.
And you can feel Bama's fear and confusion in this moment,
Yeah.
And again, An comes in and explains, like, this is the caste system at work.
Right.
And this is why we need to fight back, not with violence, but with knowledge.
Right. Education.
So this, like, fight for education continues,
Yeah.
She goes to high school, she goes to college, but, like, these societal issues aren't going anywhere. No, they don't just dissolve. Family was Christian. Was there any expectation that maybe, the church or schools would offer a different experience, like a more egalitarian experience?
Yeah, like somewhere where those rules didn't apply.
Yeah, yeah. But it seems like her decision to become a teacher was like a direct response to what Annan had been saying to her, like using education as a tool to empower others,
Yeah.
particularly, girls from backgrounds like hers. And you really get this sense of pride that she felt in, earning a living and seeing firsthand how education could change lives.
Yeah, I mean, given what she had experienced, I think that's
Yeah.
really understandable,
Yeah.
like, progression for sure.
Totally. But then things kind of take a turn towards religious life.
Okay.
Her family had a Christian background, actually. Her grandfather had converted.
Okay.
And her motivation for becoming a nun seemed to come from this like genuine desire to serve God and to, help poor Dalit children.
Right.
So there's a strong element of idealism there,
So,
like, entering this religious order. But what happens within the convent
okay.
is really eye-opening
Yeah.
and actually pretty disheartening.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so at the age of 26, she enters this convent expecting, some kind of equality,
Nice.
spiritual unity. But instead of finding an escape from the rigidities of convents,
Right.
she encounters it again.
Really?
Within the church.
Within the convent?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the discrimination's still there?
Yeah.
From, like, the other nuns?
Yeah, she faces discrimination from other nuns
Okay.
because she is Dalit.
Oh, wow.
And richer upper caste nuns are
Right.
given preferential treatment.
It's like the opposite of what you'd expect.
Yeah, totally. And it's not just like, attitudes and stuff.
Oh, really?
The source even mentions how there were differences in their living conditions.
Wow.
And the food they were given.
Yeah.
So there was like a real material hierarchy in place.
Like, that's so messed up.
It's messed up. And even though she had experienced all this hardship,
Yeah.
she was still focused on trying to support the Dalit children who were within the convent school.
Okay.
And even in that effort, she met resistance.
Really?
Yeah, the nuns would prioritize wealthier students.
Boy.
And when Bama spoke up for the poorer kids,
Right?
she was reprimanded.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So she spends 7 years in this environment
Oh, wow.
before eventually leaving in 1992.
Yeah.
And you can imagine how disillusioning that experience must have been.
Oh, totally.
Like the opposite of what the church is supposed to stand for.
Yeah, a real betrayal of, those
Yeah.
core values.
Yeah, totally. And this was like a real turning point.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
it seems like it's setting her up for what comes next.
Yeah. So she leaves the convent feeling very lost,
Great.
without a clear direction.
Right.
And a friend suggests that she should write her story
Oh, wow.
and document her experiences.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's how Karukku came about.
Yeah, and that's how Karukku comes about.
Yeah.
So it's this account of her village life, her school years, the realities of the convent,
Mm-hmm.
all through this lens of being Dalit and Christian.
Yeah, and her being a woman, too. Like,
Yeah,
that all plays into it.
absolutely.
And I think the language that she uses is so important, too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, she uses simple, everyday Tamil.
Mm.
Like, the language that's spoken in her community,
Mm.
which I think gives it this, like,
Yeah, it's so authentic.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And, when it was first released,
Yeah.
people in her village were
Right.
angry.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, they
Well-
felt like they were being portrayed negatively.
Yeah.
But eventually they came to a place of understanding and acceptance,
Right.
which I think really speaks to the power of her voice,
Yeah.
And the way she ends the book is
Oh.
really impactful. It's not just about, recounting pain. It's about discovering inner strength. A belief in the equality of all Dalits, and a real conviction that, even God would disapprove of this discrimination.
Yeah.
And she really calls on Dalits to demand the respect that they deserve.
Mm.
And it's framed not just as her individual story, but as like a representative experience for so many people in the Dalit community.
Right.
So now let's look at some of the like key themes that are woven through the book.
Yeah, this is like the core of why Karukku is so powerful.
Yeah.
And like why it resonates with so many people.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, like, we can't avoid this caste discrimination.
Yeah.
The book just depicts in such vivid detail
Right.
the dehumanizing ways
Yeah.
that Dalits were, and honestly, like in many ways, continue to be treated
Yeah.
across like every part of life.
And it's those little details that really hit you, you know?
Yeah,
Like the way the food was handled,
right.
the distance,
Totally.
the unequal treatment in school and in the church.
It's just this constant, like, chipping away at a person's dignity.
Yeah. And we can't forget about gender inequality.
Right.
Bama's experiences really show the challenges of being not just Dalit, but also a woman.
Yeah.
So, you know, the source points out the burden of hard labor, the lack of respect, the domestic violence within the community, and even like the forms of discrimination she faces as a woman within the convent. It's like
a double whammy.
Yeah. And then there's this really interesting theme of religion and hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, she's so disappointed with the church,
Yeah.
you know, an institution that's supposed to be about equality and compassion.
Right.
But instead they're showing favoritism towards the wealthy and powerful and not supporting the Dalits.
Yeah, it really makes you think about their values.
Yeah. But then amidst all of this, there's this really powerful theme of education as a source of hope.
Yeah.
Right? Like Anon's encouragement, her path to becoming a teacher, this belief that knowledge can lead to social change.
Totally.
It's a really important counter-narrative to all the negativity.
Yeah.
And then there's this personal journey of finding her identity and finding pride in who she is, right? Like she's navigating Dalit being Christian, being a woman in this society that's trying to diminish her.
Yeah.
And writing Karukku is like her way of reclaiming her voice and finding that strength.
Yeah.
And then lastly, there's this theme of community and shared pain.
Oh, yeah.
The book really shows the collective suffering of the Dalit community, but also their resilience and the way that they are united in the face of this adversity. So what does all this tell us? What's the broader significance?
Yeah, like what is the lasting impact of Karukku?
Yeah.
Our source points out that it was like a turning point.
Yeah.
I mean, first and foremost, it's one of the first published Tamil books by a Dalit woman.
Right.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Like it broke this silence and made space for other Dalit writers to like finally tell their stories.
Yeah, and it gave voice to these experiences of pain and these aspirations that we were talking about, you know, and it educated those outside the Dalit community about what was really going on.
Yeah.
And it also fostered this sense of pride within the community itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And it even changed Tamil literature.
Right.
Like the fact that she centered the narrative on Dalit life in the cherry and the fact that she used the everyday language of the Dalit community.
Lovely.
That brought a whole new level of realism and authenticity to Tamil writing.
It's so cool.
It is. And it inspired other women, you know, not just Dalit women, but women writers in general. Like they saw her strength. Speaking her truth, and Karukku became a symbol of that.
Totally.
The source even specifically mentions Azagia Perianayake Amal as a writer who was inspired by Bama.
That's so great.
It is. And the book has gotten a lot of recognition too, right? It won the Crossword Book Award for the English translation. It has a wide readership.
Right.
It's included in school and college curricula. Like all this underscores its importance, you know?
Totally.
And beyond just telling her story, it raises all these really important questions about caste, about the role of religious institutions, and it sparked conversations about fairness and social justice and change. So for Bama herself, writing this book was a journey of healing and empowerment. But the book itself continues to offer a message of hope, particularly for the Dalit community. You know, assuring them that they're not alone in their struggles. So to kind of sum up our deep dive today, you know, exploring Karukku, we see this incredibly moving personal story. It shows us the impact of caste discrimination, the challenges of gender inequality, the complexities of religious institutions. But it also shows us the strength of the human spirit and the power of education and storytelling. And if we think about it globally, you know, Bama's experiences really resonate with struggles for dignity and equality that are happening all over the world.
Absolutely.
So I want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
How does like engaging with these personal narratives like Bama's challenge like maybe some of the assumptions you hold
Right.
about the world around you.
That's a good question.
Yeah, and we encourage you to keep exploring Dalit literature
Yeah.
and these important discussions about social justice.
It's so important.
It is.